This is Komets Corner.
And here we go. We got some more. We got Jalen Schmerich. Schmerich going after his man right there at center ice. We got another scrap going on behind the play. That's Adamoto. Adamoto is pounding away at number 22. That's Andre Sutter. And look at the scrap we got here. One at Tilly there, and we got one at center ice. We got Tyson Feist also in the mix. And we have also, look at this. Look at the uppercuts by Feist.
Kind of the old saying, I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out on Friday night. I could tell you were kind of shocked that it kept going. It kept escalating and escalating and escalating.
Yeah, you know, when that happens, you don't know where to look. So it's like,
Yes.
What do I call here? So I'm saying, oh, take a look at that. Well, you can't see that. I'm on radio, but, you know.
I understand.
But I don't know where to look, so.
Oh, yeah, there was too much going on, and there was a lot going on, obviously, last week with 3 games at Norfolk. We're going to dive deep into those games. He's Shane Albarani. I'm Glenn Marini. This is Komets Corner, brought to you, as always, by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. And, you know, the aftermath of that, Jalen Schmerich gets 3 games. Also, the instigator for Norfolk gets 3 games, so we'll be without one of the top D-men for the next 2 games this week after having sat out Saturday. But I want to kind of ask you about the week in general going to Norfolk. I know you enjoyed your time at Norfolk. You went to Williamsburg in between days. Yeah. We could do a whole segment on that. But 5 out of 6 points possible. A really successful week for the Komets, still in first place in the Central Division. How would you encapsulate last week? What's the big takeaway for the Komets last week?
You know what? I mean, they stayed hot. You know, they had come off the big win in Toledo on Sunday, the 2 big wins against Indy. Then we just carried that right into Norfolk. You know, it was a team that's struggled. You know, they're at the bottom of the standings, North Division. You know, it's a team that you should beat. And we got 5 out of 6 points. You know, we could have gotten 6. I really thought we should have. But, hey, you can't complain 5 out of 6. So I think it was a really successful week.
Okay, so if you smash this week into last week, it's 8 games in 12 days. How do you handle that if you're the Komets?
Yeah, this is rough, you know, and you got 4 games this week, which is crazy, but then you're going to get the odd, I think, 10 days off or 11 days off. So, yeah, you know, it's a really weird schedule. You know, I think it is what it is. You know, we're dealing with injuries. We're dealing with a lot of things, suspensions, you know. So if we can get through these next 4 games, you know, you'd love to win all 4, obviously, you know, but hey, you come away with a split, and you're still in pretty good shape. You've regained first place. You know, Toledo's a little bit on a downswing. They're struggling a little bit, so you have to take advantage of these games because, you know, you have to get as many points because they've got games at hand. And next week, when we're off, they're going to make up those games. So, you know, you want to have a couple points in your pocket, you know, going into that. You know, Toledo lost last night in a shootout, so the Komets start the week in first place.
Before we get into Wednesday night's game against Norfolk, I want to ask about James Stefan. You mentioned injuries. He was transferred to the 14-day IR. Where is he at, and when can we expect him back injury-wise? Because obviously he's been a big contributor for this team, especially, you know, when it comes to power play. I mean, he can snipe it out there.
Yeah, that's going to be a question for the doctors. It was a pretty significant collision with the boards. What's what I can say about that, but it was one of those where when I saw it happen, I'm up in the rafters at the Scope in Norfolk, and it made a sound that was not a good sound. And the play actually turned back the other way, turned into 3-on-2. They scored, but I was actually still concerned with James Stefan. That's how nasty I thought the injury was going to be. So, you know, it's wait and see. You know, I'm sure there's going to be other testing going on medically. You know, right now it's an upper body injury. He's on the 14-day IR, and that's all we can, you know, take it from there.
All right. Good news is Matt Brown is coming back, so certainly always good to add another Matt to the roster. Don't have enough. So let's take a look at some of the highlights Wednesday at Norfolk. 3 games in 4 nights in the Mermaid City. I know you were dazzled by all the mermaid paraphernalia scattered throughout the city. But when you take a look at this Komets team, you know, in all these games against Norfolk, you guys scored the first goal every game.
Yeah,
that's a good way to start.
Yeah, this team is different when they score the first goal. You know, they're very good getting the lead and holding the lead. So you get that first goal, you get a couple in the net. We're actually one of the best third period teams too. So the starts and the finishes are getting to be a little bit better. You know, I think we've scored over 60 goals in the third period. I think we're only one of maybe 3 or 4 teams that have done that. So you know, they're starting to put things together. You know, the little details at this point in the season matter. you know, the roster obviously is ever evolving, but I think now these guys have played together for so long, you know, they kind of can pick up those little details, even though it's not a consistent lineup. And I think we really kind of showed really our experience, I think, through this week, because we had some hardship. Again, we had suspensions, we had some injuries, good goaltending. Sam Janssen was really good this weekend too.
Yeah, you saw the goal from Kirill Tutayev. He's now on the 3-day IR, so probably not going to play Wednesday.
Oh, you know, it's going to be a question mark. I think it's going to be kind of up to him. But Kirill had played every game up to Saturday night, so you know. Hey, guys just need a break, and I think, you know, sometimes, you know, the body is going to say, hey, I need a few days off, and I think, you know, Kirill seemed to be in good spirits. You know, he was Kirill, so I think it's just a matter of whether he thinks he can go on Wednesday.
All right, and Brady Stonehouse returned to the team. Tell me about what he brings, because he's one of my favorite guys to watch because he's got that little bit of instigator in him. Like, there's always a little bit of tussle, and you see old number 8 down there, and you're like, yeah, that's right, he's back on this team.
He's a good old-fashioned instigator. He's an energy guy. You know, when he's on the ice, you're going to have to play to his level. You're going to have to skate with him. And the other teams, I think, even though he's been in this league, you know, just a few months, other teams are fully aware of Brady Stonehouse. And I know right away after that first game, he got some new friends in the stands in Norfolk. They were on him pretty good. So I think, you know, you like to have those guys. And Jalen is one of those guys too, that when you go on the road, you are booed. And I think they really feed off of that, and they like that.
Yeah, lots of friends. Makes friends wherever he goes. That's the beautiful thing. Kind of an interesting bounce, obviously. A fortuitous bounce is how you would call it on Mr. Grube's goal there. But there we go.
There's Brady Stonehouse.
On cue. Brady Stonehouse doing what Brady Stonehouse does. How nice was it to see Jaden Grube get a goal, even though it was kind of a wild one. Luckily got his stick on that one off that bounce, but good to see him get in the scoring column for what I think is 5th of the season.
Yeah, you know, he's a guy who got injured first week of December, you know, hadn't played for a couple months, and you wonder how they're going to be, not just physically, but mentally as well. He was scheduled to be the Komets frontline center, and you lost him for a while, and now he's back, so it's nice to get him in the groove in the groove like that.
That's professional. That's professional journalism right there.
And no, it's like we've been getting those, you know, with the new boards at the Coliseum, you know, they have been a bit lively, let's put it that way. So, and they've worked against us quite a few times this season in our own building, but that was one where we actually got a funny bounce right off the corner, and some of the people there in Norfolk's like, well, we've never seen that come off the board like that. And like, oh, it finally goes in our direction this time. But Jaden Grube was in the right place at the right time, and he was sliding, and like you said, it's a good thing he just stuck out his stick and was able to knock it in.
So it's Kalamazoo, right, where they have the little door.
Yeah.
It's funny how it doesn't really work for the opposing team, but that little tweak on the door has worked a lot against the opponents.
Many times. I mean, going back to my childhood, I have seen things in that building with that door.
Board bounces that have never happened before, caroms that you cannot account for. So obviously a great way to start off a week where you're playing 3 games against the same team. Just what was the vibe after Wednesday night to be like, whew, that was a great way to start things off.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, you know, when we had the brawl there in game number 2, and like that stuff only happens against teams you don't play very often. I think that's because you don't have the familiarity. You're only going to have, well, one shot at him here. You know, retribution and revenge is going to have to be served this week. You know, that's why it doesn't happen against the Indies and the Toledos, you know, because you're going to play each other a lot.
More time.
Yeah. So I think it's funny when that happens, and it happens around the league. It's like it always happens against a team you don't play very often.
All right. So obviously feeling good heading into Friday's game and Saturday's game. We'll talk about those in just a minute. But Corey Melkert, quite the character. You know, when Jesse Kalicki came, that was a hire on staff. They've had a lot of parallels in their careers. They actually look quite similar, although I guess you'd say Corey's kind of like a supersized version of Jesse. But I had a chance to talk with Corey Melkert, the assistant coach for the Komets, at practice recently. And here's part 1 of a 2-part interview with Corey Melkert. We're here with assistant coach Corey Melkert. And Corey, big addition not only to the Komets family, but to your family recently. Tell me about your second daughter recently born, correct? So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been awesome. A little bit of an adjustment at home. You know, I think the biggest adjustment was actually for my 2-year-old. But other than that, mom's good. Both kids are good, so happy.
How hard is it to have a baby during the hockey season, man? I mean, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's been 2 in a row now. Last Scotty was born in training camp in my first year here. Then Remy was born midweek, right in the middle of it. So I'm used to it, fortunately, but it's certainly not easy.
Obviously, Jesse had Axel born earlier this season. So are you guys trading diaper tips, dad tips, any kind of stuff like that? Because I know you guys are pretty close.
No, I'm letting him figure it out by himself.
That's probably a good idea, right? Like, when you take a look at this hockey team, what have you really seen from the Komets this past season that you've liked? I know you're in charge of special teams, in charge of the power play. So what is it from this group that you've really seen that you like a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're built to win at the right time. We've had a couple ups and downs. Last weekend obviously wasn't great. I think for us when we're going, we're defending. And that's kind of what slipped the last weekend. I think when we're a team that's hard to play against and good in our own end, the offense kind of takes care of itself. In terms of the power play, I think we're second in the league going into last week. It wasn't our greatest week. Ultimately we have to find a way to score on the 5-on-3s that we had. We didn't end up doing that, but in terms of the power play, they've done a good job all year. I think we started a little bit slow, but ever since then we've been top 10 in the league. And I know everyone wants it to be a linear motion of just clip at 23%, but it's not going to do that. It's going to have its ups and downs. Ultimately, it's to me, it's not even so much about the percentage. I know that's what everyone looks at. It's more about, are they getting their looks? That's the thing. When I go back and look at a game for the power play, it's how many scoring chances do we have? How many shots on net did we have? That's the more important stuff. If we're doing a good job there, the goals follow.
I know that you've been here for the last 3 years here in Fort Wayne, but it's not your first time with hockey in the state of Indiana. I was looking it up, and you played in Evansville back in the day. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I enjoyed Evansville. I spent a couple years there. We had a good team one of the years. Loved the state.
As far as you go, you came, playing and coaching under Jesse with the Fayetteville Marksmen, and then you became the head coach after he moved on. So obviously you had to clean up a lot of the things that he did. But what did you learn during that experience? You guys have been, I don't want to say tied to the hip, but you guys have been together a long time. I mean, at this point, are things pretty intuitive on the coaching staff thus far? Yeah,
I think we know each other pretty well at this point. Obviously I'm fortunate enough. He's the one that's given me an opportunity. He hired me right when I was done playing, and since then I think we've both come a long way. When he got the job in Florida, I was able to take over Fayetteville, and at that level you learn a lot about yourself as a person, with how much stuff you have to do, outside of hockey. So, I think we've both grown a lot as people. Got a couple kids, he's got a kid. We've come a long way since 7 years ago.
All right, so we'll have more from Corey Melkert, who's busy probably right now changing diapers and doing all that good stuff. Nothing more exciting than having a baby during the hockey season. I was going to say him, but the hockey season's so long, it's like you can't avoid it, right? I mean, it's crazy.
You can, but it's
well, okay, you can. They didn't. But no, obviously great to talk to him. We'll hear more in just a few minutes from Corey Melkert. But as we said before the interview, Komets feeling really good, winning 3-1 against a team that didn't know a whole lot about or haven't seen, obviously, and will only see this past week. So let's take a look at some of the highlights from Friday night, because this one was a little wilder of a night than Wednesday was in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But, again, the scoring starts off early. McGarrett gets a goal, his 22nd in the first period. And Janicki would also get a shorty.
Yeah,
which is rare this year.
Yeah, just the second shorthanded goal, but that's because, no Jack Gorniak, a guy who led the league in shorties his rookie year. But Janicki, he has got both shorthanded goals for the Komets this year. We scored 28 seconds into the game, and you're feeling pretty good. It was the fastest goal to start a game this season. So, you were feeling good, but you give it right back. You come back, get a shorty, and the unfortunate thing was that they were still on the power play, and they scored like 30 seconds later. So, it was 2-2, right off the jump, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be a crazy one, and it just got crazier as the night went on.
Yeah, and you take a look at this Komets team. William Dufour would get a goal in the second period as well. What has he added to this team? Because the more you see him play, he's almost a point-a-game guy with the Komets thus far. The more you see him play, the more he seems like he's meshing with
Yeah,
this
he's
team.
good. He's still a legit NHL prospect, and this is, the craziness of the ECHL. We traded Zach Jordan for Lyndon McCollum. We thought, that was a bit of an upgrade. Lyndon stays, 2 weeks? He goes to Europe. Now, if that doesn't happen, we do not get William Dufour. And William Dufour, I think is the best out of the two. So
perhaps a net gain.
It all works out.
Silver linings.
Yeah.
That's what we're all about. But yeah, William Dufour gets a goal. That's his third. That ties it at 3-all in the second. And then Reese Harsh would get his fourth goal of the year.
Yeah, you know what? He is, he might be the unsung hero on this team.
I was going to say he's quietly been really good.
Yeah, when we come up with those season-ending awards, he might be the guy because he has come up with some big goals. Obviously, he doesn't score. That's not his game. But tell you what, he has come up with some big ones in that one. He was right in the slot. He was right there between the hash marks, and he let one rip. And he's deceptively really good offensively, but he's been very steady on the defensive end. We're missing Harrison Reese, who, arguably maybe our steadiest, stay-at-home defenseman. So he's picking up that slack there. But, he's a guy who's had, almost it seems like a different D pair every night. So he's a guy who has adapted really, really well. And, again, I think he's that unsung hero, I think, might be at the end of the year.
And, with Harrison Reese, he's a great pairing with Smerrick because Smerrick can do all the offensive stuff, and then you have Reese to stay home and do all the that's a really good. They play off each other really well.
Absolutely. And losing Harrison Reese was big, but he will be back, before playoffs. Hopefully even sooner than that. But Matt Murphy's now been on the shelf for I think for like 3 weeks, so there's another one that we're going to get back. So. Defensively, we're going to be deep here at some point. We picked up Luca Heno, who has been really good. I was, when we signed him, I was shocked that he was available. He was released by Jacksonville early in the year, and he had just been sitting around for about 3 months. And I don't know if his phone never rang, but I'm glad he picked up when we called because he's actually a really good find and a really good defenseman with a lot of experience in the ECHL.
And when you take a look at this game going into the third period, it would have a fourth period essentially. But this is kind of anyone's game still. And what did you see from the Komets that you liked? And what did you see that you might like to have fine-tuned over the next few weeks?
I think it's around the Komets have 8 overtime losses, the most in the league. And I don't know how many times this season where I think it's about 5 times where we've had the lead late in the third, they pull their goaltender and they score and they win in overtime. I don't know how to fix that. It's just something that everyone needs to work on. But that goes back to, I've said it to a lot of people. I'm like, if we have Jack Gorniak out there, we win probably all of those games because he's a speed guy. He's a guy who finds the empty net. He's a guy who can just take the puck, outskate everybody, and he's going to find the empty net or at least skate it out of the zone. We just don't kind of have that guy. That was, almost like his specialty.
He's a closer.
He's a closer. Exactly. He's the guy. Yeah, so he's a guy, if you get him the puck with an empty net, he's probably going to score, or he's just going to outrace everybody down in the other zone and then keep the puck down in the offensive end. So, it's just something that it's a little quirk in our game that we'll definitely need to work on. But you're still getting points, which is the most important thing. But, you get in the playoffs, obviously you're going to want to tighten up, play a full 60.
Yeah, special teams were good for most of the week, but 3 for 3 on the power play in that game for Norfolk. Yeah. I know. I'm like, oh gosh, of course we interviewed Corey Melker this week because he's the guy in charge of special teams.
But that's another thing, and you even look at.
It's not going to happen that many times.
Yeah, but you also look at when I've said this, 5-on-5 doesn't matter who we got out there. We're one of the best teams in the league. You go back to the game Sunday in Toledo. How did Toledo stay in that game? Scored on the power play. We let them get power plays. 5-on-5, we beat them. This is the same thing. They scored 3 power play goals and then a goal with the goaltender pulled for the extra skater. So they didn't have really any 5-on-5 goals. So, you're going to take penalties. You have to kill them off, but I think we've been really disciplined this year, and we don't lead the league or not even close to the top, an average penalty minutes per game. I think that's good, but you're going to get penalties. You're going to have to kill them off, but again, 5-on-5, this is still one of the best teams in the league.
All right, well, we did talk to Corey Melker. You heard the first part of our interview with him just a while ago. Here's part 2 with assistant coach Corey Melker. As far as you go, when your time in Fayetteville came and went, what do you most missed about Fayetteville? Because I lived in Arkansas for 5 years. The one thing I always miss is the barbecue. We just don't have that same level of barbecue up here, man.
Yeah, easy question for me, the weather.
Yeah, that is an easy question.
I got pretty used to the weather, and I actually got used to it both ways. I got used to no snow, nice winters, and then I actually got used to the super hot summers, and I miss them both.
Well, that plays into my next question because I heard you're a pretty good can jam player. Is that correct?
I'm more of a golfer.
Okay.
I can do the can jam too.
Okay. I mean, I would think
Any college sports.
There you go. Any outdoor college stuff.
Any outdoor college stuff, yeah.
For you, kind of what are some of the things that you try to improve on as a coach here? Obviously, you try to always add to your bag because I would think most people want a head coaching job at some point. So what are some of the things that you try to do to improve yourself on the sidelines to be a better coach down the line?
Yeah, for me, it's every day. You know, I try to get better every day. I don't pretend to be the smartest person in the room. You know, I try to talk to as many people as I can, you know, whether it's our coaching staff, other coaching staffs at higher levels, coaching staffs at lower levels, it doesn't matter. I try to talk to as many people as I can, and for me, it's a daily thing to try to get better.
I was talking to Shane Albarani, and I was like, I'm going to interview Corey Melkert pretty soon. He goes, you got to make him laugh right off the top. He's like, when we tape our segments with the pizza and the pregame segments, he goes, that's the key. You got to get him laughing off the top. Is that the key to Corey Melkert's heart, is laughter?
I like humor. I like to keep it a light, especially, you know, for me as the assistant coach, if I can, you know, have relationships with everybody, you know, in the organization and keep it light and have some humor, I think it always helps.
That leads me to making things work. You know, your wife Paxton involved in the medical field. You were bouncing around coaching. She was in medical school. How do you make that work? Because people think, you know, people see everything on the ice, but you have a life off the ice. So how did you make that work? Obviously, you're happily married with 2 kids right now. So how do you make that family dynamic work and that relationship work? Because it can't be easy in the game of hockey.
Yeah, she makes it work. No, just kidding. She does. You know, obviously for me, I'm super fortunate. You know, during the hockey season, she's the rock. You know, I'm gone quite a bit. You know, now we have 2 kids, so she keeps that house together. And then in the summertime, it's my turn to return the favor, I guess, and take care of the kids and all that stuff. But you know, I'm super fortunate. I actually met her playing. You know, I think that was 8 years ago, and you know, we've been together ever since. 2 kids, growing up together. It's great.
All right. So 3 years here in Fort Wayne. I'm going to ask you, outside hockey, what's your favorite thing about Fort Wayne?
My favorite thing about Fort Wayne, we actually really love it here. I don't know if I can choose one. You know, we spend our off seasons here. You know, I have a golf membership at Cherry Hill. I love golfing. You know, ultimately, we enjoy everything about Fort Wayne. We like it. Good little city.
Great answer. Great answer.
Yeah.
Great answer. I feel like Steve Harvey on Family Feud. Great answer. Great answer. He is Corey Melkert. I'm Glenn Marini, and that is Komets Corner. All right, so Corey Melkert, got a chance to interview him. I've been waiting on that interview for about 3 years. I always wanted to ask him because his career and life and parallels so much with Jesse's that it's crazy. They're almost 2 in 1.
Yeah, he's a man of few words, but you know, Corey actually has got a great personality.
You gave me great advice. You got to get him laughing.
Yeah,
so.
you got to get him going. That's what I try to do. I try to loosen him up a little bit, and once you get him going, you know, he's a great dude.
All right, well, the Komets got things going again on Saturday night against the Norfolk Admirals. Let's take a look at some highlights from Saturday's game, which would end in a 4-1 win. And again, you score in the first period, you score first. It's Matt Capone this time. And this guy never gives up on a play. When you talk about Matt Capone, like,
yeah, this was great. Yeah, you know, he's a guy who he's always grinding, another energy guy. Glad we have him. Hope we can, you know, he's a contract with Bakersfield. Hopefully we'll be able to keep him for the remainder of the season. But yeah, you know, he picked up an assist. It was either this game or on Friday, you know, where he got knocked down in the corner. And I'm not sure if he was actually faking being down or was he actually a little slow getting up, but he kind of stayed down. They forgot about him. He popped back up and he ended up getting the assist. So he's a really smart hockey player. He's a guy who's always, you can tell he knows where he needs to be. He's a good chirper. You know, he's like everything you want in a hockey player.
He's not the biggest guy, but he's fearless.
Yes.
Like he will get in front of the goal. He'll take the hit, but he'll keep on. He takes a licking, but keeps on ticking.
Yeah, you know, he's you know, he's not quite as scrappy as a Brady Stonehouse, but a guy, you know, just right here. Here's the play where he went down, and I thought that he was actually going to be out of the play, but there he was. He just joined back in. So no, I mean, he's been a great addition to this team. I don't think he was a guy that maybe they'd planned on getting, but you know, he was sent down to get some more ice time, and he's a top line guy now. So it's really nice to see him grow and get a lot better, and he's a great personality. You know, yesterday it was a little tense travel day due to the gold medal game. You got half Americans and half Canadians.
I wondered how that played.
And Matt Capone was right in the middle of the smack talking. So
Yeah, driving into work today, I was going to ask about. I was like, I wonder how that plays in a locker room where it's like 50-50.
Yeah, we were waiting around in the airport, for the first two periods, and right as we started to get on the plane, the third period started. So you have this entire back of the plane, and you got everybody watching the game. But it was funny because the Wi-Fi and whatever you were using, everybody was off. Some was off by like a minute, some were like 30 seconds. So you would hear cheers, and then you would hear, what happened? I'm behind.
Yeah.
So, but then you had the smack talk from aisle to aisle. For me, great entertainment.
Yeah, no, it would have to be. These guys are providing free quality entertainment for you during the flight. Austin McGarrett gets a goal, a power play goal. Komets, 2 for 4 on the power play on Saturday. That had to feel good if you're a Komets fan.
Yeah, Austin McGarrett, what a great addition. He's everything and more, over 20 goals. Last year the Komets only had 2 20-goal scorers, and now, we potentially have 3, maybe 4, who knows, maybe even 5. And here we are just at the end of February, so, we're going to smash some goal totals from last year. I think overall, I think we're a little better defensively. Goaltending has been very steady. So, if we can survive this last week, I think everyone is like, all right, we got 4 games this week, which is crazy. Let's get through it and let's get a break. Let's get some rest and get some legs back. When we come back, March 11th. So it's crazy to say that, but I think the Komets really need to take advantage of that because we played a credible schedule, and I think even though we had to rearrange the schedule there. You're off a little bit because you're used to playing every week, but to have a week off like that and the dog days, I mean. Other teams are not going to have that. So the fact that we're going to take that time, everyone can rest up, get some guys back from injured reserve and move forward. And who knows what Bakersfield does in that time. So it could be a completely different lineup at the end of next week because, we don't know what we're going to lose this week too. So this week,
be interesting.
This week is crazy. Yeah.
Recharge the batteries though, and that's never a bad thing to get the legs a little fresher over the course of the season, especially this deep in. Let's take a look at the ECHL standings now. Komets atop the standings as you take a look at them. Komets with 66 points in 50 games, Toledo 64 points in 48 games, and Bloomington and Indy, if the playoffs started, would be the 3rd and 4th seeds out of the Central Division. When you take a look at these standings, what's your first thought? Because obviously Toledo's got 2 games in hand, and then there's going to be that big break as we've talked about, but also the Indy Fuel playing some decent hockey as well.
Yeah, Indy's a team.
They played well up here.
Yeah, they're sneaky good. It was good to get a win in our own barn against those guys because in the series, pretty much the road team had won every game, and then to go down and then beat them down in Indy was good. We match up really, really well with Indy. A team that sometimes worries me is Bloomington. We've had some troubles with them. I love the way we match up with Toledo. They're struggling a little bit, so we need to take advantage of that. But the goal here, is to finally win the division. Toledo's been the top of that division for a decade. It's crazy to think that. So it's like, I think this is the year. We got to take out Toledo. Let's get that number 1 seed. And this is the team. I think we can do it. Like I said, 5-on-5. I will put them up against anybody. So I really like. The way this team looks, despite, you go back to training camp, we lost Jack Gorniak, we lost Dylan Hamiluk, that could have been a disaster, but it hasn't. I'm really impressed by what Corey and Jesse and Olivia have done.
All right, let's take a look at the schedule for this coming week. We got 3 games against Wheeling, and we're talking about, a lot of hockey over the next week. But for you guys, what are you most looking forward to about this week? Obviously, you get the big break, as we've talked a lot about afterwards, but real quickly, what are you really looking forward to about this week?
Well, it's fun to see Wheeling. They've been at the top of the North Division all season long, and they're slipping back. So they're a team that is now hungry for points. The only reason we lost that game in Wheeling 2 weeks ago was because, Taylor Gauthier maybe had the best game I've ever seen at this league. It was a crazy night for him to play that well. So let's hope he doesn't bring his A++ game against us. We're going to see these guys 3 times. So it'll be a good test for both teams. I think both teams are looking forward to it. And even though both teams looking good, as far as playoffs, but you know what? Each team wants to win that division. This is, you got top team in the Central, top team in the North. You're thinking, hey, maybe this is a Kelly Cup final matchup. So who knows?
There you go.
Yeah.
What more could you ask for
That's right.
during a week in February, right? All right. So he is Shane Albarani. I'm Glenn Marini, and that is this week's edition of Komets Corner, brought to you by Lee's Famous Recipe.
You're watching Komets Corner.